Hello, I just wanted to come on here real quick to show a video on how I prepare images to cut with the Cricut. I have Explore Air 2. So here I have a graphic from Creative Fabrica. I'm going to I have my Move tool selected. I'm just going to shrink her a little bit so that I have some edge down here. Click OK. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom of my layers panel. This is how I have my layers panel set up. And let's see, I'm going to do outer glow. And I had already selected a nice light color here. And I'm going to leave my size kind of high. It will give me a preview. But what that will do will fill in the blanks around the flowers that she's holding. And it filled them in here. And I'm going to zoom in so the Cricut won't have to cut all these little jagged pieces. But the border around her is just a little too much. I want to reduce this amount here. So I'm going to go back over to my layers panel. Sorry for moving you. And I'm going to click here on my layer, right click, all the way near the bottom, rasterize layer style. That makes it permanent. Here we are with our permanent. And I'm going to just, for an example, you won't have to do this. Just want to show you against a brighter background how that has filled in between all these little leaves, which the Cricut would have taken a year to cut through, and it would have been real brittle. If I had had like a red spot from my background layer show in here, I would just paint it in. But now she looks good, so I'm going to go back to my layer. I'm going to leave the background here. I'm not touching, I'm not doing anything with the background. It's just there to show the dots better. So I'm going to select my magic wand tool. I'm going to select. So this is not selecting anything red on the background layer. It's only selecting the transparent layer around the girl. And then I'm going to go up here to select. And this is where you have to kind of play with it. I'm going to select modify and expand. And the last one I did, I expanded at 33. Let's just see what 33 pixels does. And you see how it has taken the transparent border and expanded it into this outer glow that we rasterized. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit my delete key on my keyboard, and that will cut off all that extra outer glow layer. So she looks pretty good. There's a little spot right here that I want to try to fill in. So I'm going to go back up here to select and deselect. I'm going to go to my paintbrush tool, and I'm going to make this top layer here my outer glow color that I used, and just fill that in right there. So that looks pretty good. If I wanted to kind of get a closer cut right here, I could use the erase tool, but she looks pretty good the way she is. If you weren't happy, you could go back to select, go back to your magic wand tool, select somewhere outside of the image, select, modify, expand. Let's try 12, just as an example. So we'll see that cuts it in a little closer. If I hit my delete key, it takes that off. I'm going to go to select, deselect, and see how that looks. She looks really good. So I'm going to get rid of my background. I'm going to choose File, Export, and Export As. And I'm going to export her as a transparent PNG file. It's really bogs down my Design Space software if the image is very big. I know I'm only going to print her just a few inches tall, so I'm going to reduce this number to 1200. That'll be my image size, not my canvas size, or that would have cut her off. So let's export. I'm going to save it in my Cricut file. And now I can take my original file and just close it and don't save it. So now in Design Space, let me see. This is one I had done that was a tall girl. Here, let's go back here. I'm going down here to upload image, browse. I'm going to go look for her. What was she called? Let's see. There she is. Click open. And now this is where Design Space takes over. I'm just going to click through to continue. My layer is pretty much transparent. I'm going to click apply and continue. This is where I check if I had missed any little holes. If I had not created my outer glow large enough, I would see holes here, which this looks good. So I'm going to select the flat graphic. And I just call her an object. Click upload. It's going to take a minute. And it's going to probably look huge. Here she is huge. I want her to be, I'm gonna hide this girl. I've already printed her, so I'm gonna hide her over here on Design Space. Click my Spring Girl layer here. And I'm only gonna want her to be about 2.5 inches wide. Let's see how that goes. So I'm going to select up here, type in 2.5, make sure that my aspect ratio is locked. It will be locked by default. And I'm just going to hit enter, and she shrinks. Now I want to see how many can I get on a page. So I'm going to click make it. And here she is on the page. Let's try 5 or 6. Click apply. And I see here that 2 won't fit. So if I go down to 4, there you are. But then it leaves a whole bunch of white space on my paper. So let's cancel this. I'm going to click on my girl, right click, duplicate. Let's make her a real small one, maybe 1.7 inches. She's going to be small. So I have both of these girls on here. I'm going to click make. And this is how much of the page would be taken if you just printed one copy of each. So let's try 4. It adds a couple here. I still have this big extra space, but that's pretty much going to be fine. When I do my cut, I'm not even going to cut this second page over here. I'm just going to print 2 of this first page, send to printer. I'm going to click 2. Now my first one will cut the 4 out. After that first cut, I don't want to cut page 2 because there's only a couple of images here. So I'll make sure after the first page cuts, I will click back up here to page 1 so that it will cut them all out again. And I'll come back and see what it looks like. And here's what she looks like cut out. It didn't take very long at all. The Cricut didn't have to cut around all those little tiny flower pieces. So I'm going to show you one that is a little more detailed as far as the space between all the flowers. So all this would have to be cut out. I put it on a red background just to show you all those little cutouts. And we don't want the Cricut to do that. It'll shred it pretty much. So I'm going to, again, go to my layer, down here to the effects and outer glow. I'm going to keep that same color. It's kind of going to work for this project as well. Let's say okay. Turn on my red background. That did a really good job of covering all these spaces in between, but there is a space right here. I don't want the Cricut to have to mess with that. So let me see if I can stabilize my phone. I don't have the software to do a screen grab. So I'm going to, on my layer, flower layer, I'm going to select my paintbrush tool and make sure that I have my light colored layer, the same color as my outer glow. I'm going to zoom in here and just paint. And that gets rid of what would be the background. Right. Now, zoom out. I want to kind of minimize the large glow around the bottom of the jars. I'm going to hide my background. So first thing I do is go over, sorry, this is not a screenshot. Right click on that layer, rasterize layer. That flattens basically the outer glow to the image. And I've had to turn my light on, so now there's a glare. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my magic wand tool, select in the transparent area, so it selects all of the transparent area. I want to scrunch down that beigeish layer, so I'm going to go to select, modify, expand, because I want to expand it into the beige layer here. Let's try 12. And that really didn't do anything. It's a high res picture, so let's do select, modify, expand. Let's try 33. That got real close. I like that. If I had done a higher number, let's do the 33 again, modify, expand, I would have gotten into the actual design. So I don't want that. I'm just going to edit, undo. So here I have this much. This much here will come off. Let's hit the delete key and it's gone. Hit select, deselect, and that is my picture. If you want to check to make sure that all the little places have been covered up, I use a high contrast color, such as this red, on a background layer. And when I activate that background layer, I don't see any red poking through, so I know I'm good. I can get rid of that background layer. And now I'm going to export as a PNG. Sorry, move you back over here. This is going to be a big image, so I'm going to just take it down to 1,000. Just to not bog down my design space. Export, save it to my file. And I can get rid of my original file. I'm not going to save that. So here in design space, I'm back to where I had printed 2 of the girls in the first part of this video. I'm going to tell the Cricut to recut this one. I don't want to cut this one with just the 2 people. I want to recut this one. So I click back up here, make sure everything shows up. Sometimes my Cricut will not activate this button that tells you to load the mat, so I just have to turn it, the selector, a little bit, and it will display that flashing. Here it goes. Here is a more unique graphic. It has larger spaces here. It has spaces in between the flowers. So let's get an idea of what we need to cover up. I'm going to create a new layer, and it is positioned over, by default, over this graphic. I have a red tile here. I'm going to click my paint bucket and just flood that layer with red. Now I'll drag this layer below to reveal the flower graphic. You can see a lot of red here that the Cricut would have to cut in between. So I'm going to make sure that I'm on my flower layer. And I'm going to go to the bottom here of my layers panel, the FX and outer glow. I'm going to try to minimize the glow here just to show you another way that you can do it. That's a pretty good amount, but we still see some red in our background here. We don't want the Cricut to have to worry about cutting out all these little tiny things. So I'm going to take my paintbrush tool and make sure my color tile that is the same color as my outer glow is selected, and it is. And I'm just going to reduce my, let's see, I clicked here for the paintbrush. I'm going to reduce my paintbrush by clicking a bracket key. That makes it smaller. I can get in here and do this. Here's another little spot right here. Just checking. There's another little spot right here, so I'm going to close that off. Here's another one here. Sometimes you might want to have some bigger places that will be cut so that your background of your tag, when you place this on your tag, will show up. So I may leave some areas around the ladder portion, but I don't want to have to wait for it to cut all this. Just kind of make it, seal it up. That's one way to think about it. Let's go over to the far edge. Here's some more. So since the layer has the outer glow effects added to it, I don't have to completely fill, because what I'm painting will also have an outer glow. So that looks pretty good. This is okay. This will add some dimensionality, I guess, to your ladder, to this graphic that will show up. This red area here will be cut out by the Cricut. This will be cut out. Let's reduce it and see. That looks really pretty good. So I'm going to delete my red background layer. I don't need that saved. I'm going to do File, Export, Export As, and it's going to be a PNG transparent. I'm going to bump this down in resolution. Whoops, I don't want 100, I want 1,000. And I'm just going to save it. And here we go. I'm going to close out my original file. I don't need to save it. So let's go back into the Cricut. Design space, click Upload, look for my image, and it's the ladder here. And click Continue, and Apply and Continue. And here you'll see where the Cricut will get in here and cut out these notches. I think for this particular graphic, it would look good to have whatever my tag base looks like showing through. So let's grab a tag. This is not going to be wide enough, but to have my tag base show through the holes. Let's click, okay, sorry. Flat graphic, continue, save it. And it's going to pop up onto the design space larger than I want to cut it. We did dump it down to 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels, excuse me, to make it a smaller image, but see how my design space kind of bogs down with these bigger images. If I'd have left it at 3,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels, we would still be sitting here. So this has loaded it in as 5.287 inches wide by 6.395 inches tall. I know that most of my tag bases don't exceed 4 inches. So let's pull this width down to 3 inches. There you go. That would look nice on a 4-inch tag. You'd have some other space where you could put something over it. So let's do a make. And I'm going to click up here. See if we can get 4 to a sheet. And we can. So I have a lot of extra space down here. What I like to do is, let's go back, cancel that, right click on our image, duplicate, so we have 2 now. Let's put this down to just a 1.5 inch. Go back to make it. And that, let's see if we can get back to the 4. And that will add 3 little ones here to that extra space. But you'll also see that it's going to want to try to print a second page with just 1 on there. We're not going to print that page, and we're not going to cut that page. If I bring it down to 3, because this 1 is an extra, hit apply. Look, I still have extra space, and I don't want to just throw that paper away. So let's overfill, basically. Go back to 4, apply, and I'm going to print 2 copies of this. You could print 1 copy here and then go back and reprint another copy. My printer takes a little time, so I'm just going to go ahead and get the 2 printed. And we'll come right back. So here is the ladder flower pot design. That's going to look really good. Let's see, let's put it on a card. You're going to see the back of the card pokes through. Sorry about this. And you can even put your little girl on there. That would look really good, really sweet on a card. Thanks for watching. I know there's some Photoshop skill and design space skill involved, but I hope you enjoyed the video.